Hi, friends. Hello, the world. How are you? I hope you're doing all amazing despite all this weather changes, at least in Europe where I am now. And actually, I'm realizing that I should have brought my um, winter jacket. Anyway, I'm a freezer anyway, so now in this weather, freezing even more. But today's topic that I would love to talk about is exploring your upper limits. I've been talking about it in my email that I've sent out to people that I have close contact with. So if you want to be in that email, please message me as well. So this week, I thought that it might be time for all of us to explore what are our upper limits, meaning what it is that we can achieve in life, or what it is that who we can be in life, or what we want, of who we want to be. Where are the limits of that? And how do we know that this is the limit? And how do we know that this is not the limit, but actually it's a starting point? So before we dive into the topic of what upper limits that I'll be talking about in how to find out your upper limit, I would love to ask you some questions as usual for you to consider and see what comes up for you. Now, the first question that I want to ask is, have you consciously in your adult life made a decision or choice to go after exploring your upper limit? In other words, have you thought about what is my full potential of what I can achieve in life or who I can be in life, and went and done that? Because for many of us, I think we haven't really explored it, and we just go by the default of what others say we could do or what we think we could do in that moment, and then we just continue doing it, or we continue being that person without really consciously deciding that this is my upper limit, or this is to which I want to strive towards achieving, right? And the other question that I would love for you to consider is, what if we permitted other people to decide for us what our upper limits are? For instance, our employers, our communities, our societies, parents, whoever around us, who decide whether or not we're capable of doing this, or whether or not we're capable of being this person that we're wanting to be. So these two questions that I would love for you to consider and see what comes up for you. So now this blog post is all about knowing when we have exhausted our full potential. Now, obviously, everyone's potential is different and everyone's capacity and capabilities are different, yet I think that we all have all of our capabilities within us, and most of them, they stay unexplored or they stay unchallenged, and therefore we don't really get to the places or to the higher parts of what we want to achieve. And with this episode, I would love for you to challenge that and dig deep into your own self, into your own inner world, and find out all of those answers. Because the problem I find is that oftentimes we are programmed from our childhood. We're programmed from the early stages of who we could be and what we could do by other adults, knowingly and unknowingly, right? So some of the things they taught us on purpose so that we know, and other things they taught us without really knowing, was their behaviors, was other things. And therefore we've come to adopt some of these concepts and realize for ourselves that this is what I can do, or this is who I can become, and this is who I'm not. Therefore, this is something that I find is so crucial that we challenge at every stage of our lives, By every stage, I mean, once we turn into adulthood, and then once we turn into maybe several years into our new choices, and then keep redefining, challenging, and keep creating new things if we wanted to. Because those are the challenges of ourselves that we challenge ourselves could get us to new heights that we want if we wanted. So origins of where we get these upper limits, as I said, one could be from childhood, right? Interesting story that I want to tell you is that recently I got a message from a, I don't know, 16-year-old young man from my village in Kyrgyzstan, and his parents and I studied together. So that's why the parents told him to talk to me in terms of career advice, because I guess I'm seen in the village as someone who's achieved a lot. So that's why he was told to turn to me. And he wrote me a WhatsApp message saying, I would like to get your advice on what to study. And I said, well, what would you like to study? And he said, he wants to become a singer. And I said, great, go for it. And he said, no, I could never be a singer because my parents told me that singers never earn money. So my parents told me that I should study engineering because that's what earns money, right? So you can see, I mean, probably you know as well that where not only we've been set an upper limit, but also we've been set a limit of what we can and cannot do by adults with good intentions at the time when we're little. And that's why we may have adopted that without ever questioning it. So another origin of upper limit could be from adulthood. And here, I will give you an example of myself as well, that in my 10 years of career, I always followed those policies, those frameworks within the organization of what was possible for me, what was possible to earn money, what was possible to get promotions, and how to behave and what to strive for within that framework that was decided by the employer. Right. So many of us obviously go through life, especially in the beginning stages of our lives. We try to get whatever we can, or we try to get the area that we want to work on. And then we get into it, and then we start just living within the framework that is established by others in that setting. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying that check with yourself if you are moving within that framework and you never challenge yourself to say if it's really the framework that you want to continue moving around, or you want to actually expand that limit to something else, expand it to something different, or expand it to, even within that setting, to something that hasn't been done before, if you really think that that's what you want to go for, right? So that's why just because we happen to have made those choices back in the 20s doesn't mean that that's how we need to go all the way up, just because we've invested so much time, or we've invested so much of our effort, because we can always decide that, is this really the heights that I'm going for, or it's something else that I'm going for, and make decisions as well. So that could be from the adulthood. And then I find that another category of upper limits set are obviously by our people surrounding us, by community, by society, saying that this is what you can do, this is what you cannot, this is who you can be and who cannot be. Like, especially when it comes to women and girls, I know that, at least from culture where I come from, that certain things are not available for women by default by society, or certain things are not available for women by default by community, and therefore getting out of it or challenging that structures is so challenging that you don't even want to start it, right? It becomes so tiring to do it, or it becomes so crucial that you even feel like if you say something, you will be shunned from community, so therefore you don't really do it. So therefore, this I find it as an upper limit set by fear. Fear of displeasing community, fear of losing a community, fear of not pleasing others because you want to be part of them. So that fear-based setting of upper limits. Now, knowing this, you could do some of the things that I say here as a solution or as an exploration mode for you to understand whether you want to challenge it or not. And there are many ways, obviously, you could challenge this, but some of the ways that I want to propose here are in 3 ways. One of the way is questioning whatever you're believing now about your capabilities, about what you think you could become or what capabilities you have that you haven't used. So one of the questions that I love asking is, how do you know when you have exhausted your upper limit? Excuse me. That could give you a good sense of what's happening, or what will you need to achieve in order for you to have all what you wanted? Or what do you think is your full potential, and are you using it? So these are the many, there could be many other questions that you could ask in terms of, is this really your upper limit, or it's just the beginning? How do you know it's your upper limit? And how do you know if it's just the beginning? Right? So this could be the ways that questioning yourself, questioning your own understanding of what your upper limit is, you can just question it and find out what it is that for you. For instance, for me, when I questioned myself and my upper limit, there was times when I thought that my upper limit is my employer and whatever the employer offers, and the career path and the ladder and all of this is my upper limit. This is what I'm capable of. I'm happy that I'm there, and I'm just grateful that I can work there. But then years passed and I grew in the career and in the organization. I realized that I'm actually capable of doing many other things that I want to do. And my employer is not the upper limit. Even if with all the highest positions within the organization, that's not the upper limit. I want to have my own upper limit, and I don't want it set by the employer. So your answers might be different, but you check with yourself by questioning whatever the upper limit that you're thinking you have now, and whether that's really your upper limit. The other way you could also question it is, or explore it, is by looking into your inner desires. Whatever the desire might be there that's prevailing recently or for some years now. And those desires might be saying things like, I actually want to do this in life, but I'm doing something else. And if that desire keeps prevailing, then it's definitely something that you need to check and find out why you're not going after those desires. And that will also show you some of the limitations that are putting yourself and constructing in your mind, and find out whether you are fine with the answers you give to yourself. Right? So I would love for you to explore all of these desires from a full freedom, to know that you can set your own upper limit if you want to. You don't need to get it set by anyone else, even if you have been doing it for the last decades. Because in the end of the day, it's your life. And no matter what others were setting limits for you, or you were allowing them to set limits for you, does not mean that you can't change that anymore. And the third way of exploring it is, think of all the things you've done in the past, especially all the things that have not existed until you started working on it or until you started creating it for yourself in your life. And then notice how much you are able and capable of creating already that was not there. Maybe it was there for other people, but in your own life, those achievements that you have now, it was not there until you started creating them. Now imagine how much more or how much different things you could have achieved if you didn't limit yourself in whatever way in this particular framework you are in now. Imagine if you could create new upper limits, or even within the environment where you are, strive for new limits that you could go and set for yourself and achieve. And you could do that just because you wanted it. Okay, my friends, this is what I have for you today. This is also written in the blog post as usual, so you can check out the blog post as well. And if you would like to explore your upper limits or set new ones, please come to a free coaching session where we will be exploring all of this. And in the meantime, I wish you an amazing weekend. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.